What will happen next? No one in the village remembered a night as unnervingly silent as the one James staggered through. The wind had died, the frogs had gone mute, and even the old bamboo behind the kitchen, usually restless like an old woman tossing in her sleep, stood stiff and motionless under the pale wash of moonlight. James did not belong in this kind of night, not with the blood running warm down his arm. Not with the world tilting sideways each time he blinked. He collapsed against the wooden post outside the little house. Breath-shaking, one hand pressed desperately over the fresh slash that burned across his shoulder. His coat was soaked through, clinging to him like a second skin. Inside, Hung was pacing, or rather, wearing a trench into the floorboards, his mind trapped in the same loop it had spun through for hours. He kept replaying the phone call that had shattered his morning, deep, voice trembling, telling him that Mr. Not for money. Fat had come again. Not even for the dog. Not for negotiation. For her. Hung didn't know what terrified him more, the man's obsession or Deep's determination to stand up to him alone. She wasn't built for that fight, not against someone like Fat, a man with a reputation that stretched like a dark stain across the border towns. A man who was used to taking what he wanted, so when he heard the weak knock outside. It didn't register as a knock at all, more like the falling of a branch. He didn't open the door immediately. He didn't expect anyone, and he certainly didn't expect James. The sound tore out of him when he swung the door open. There was no mistaking the sharp cut of James's jaw or those dark, but tonight they held a glaze Hung had never seen. Exhausted eyes, a deep, pulsing pain. Pain failed. James tried to speak. His knees gave out and Hung lunged forward. Catching him before he hit the ground. Damn it, what happened? Hung's voice cracked. Who did this to you? James blinked slowly, trying to hold onto consciousness. The one who was looking for me, he's not looking for me anymore. Then his gaze shifted. Unfocused yet deliberate, he's looking for her. The words dropped into the room like stones into dark water. Irrevocable, disturbing, heavy. Hung froze. For Deep? James nodded, or tried to. He followed the wrong trail. He thought it was me. But he kept asking, kept saying her name. Hung felt the cold breath of something ancient sweep through him, a danger that wasn't new. A danger they had misjudged. With trembling hands, he pulled James inside and lowered him gently onto the old bamboo cot. The dog, Don, immediately rushed forward with a low growl, sniffing the blood, circling anxiously. Shish, boy, Hung whispered, though his own hands weren't steady. I've got you. But the truth was obvious, he didn't. Tonight, everything had shifted. Not this time. The blow wasn't aimed at James. The footsteps in the bamboo grove weren't trailing him. The whispers that night had carried her name, not his, as Hung cleaned the wound, a jagged cut. Suspiciously sharp, as if done by someone who knew exactly what they were doing, James kept drifting in and out of consciousness. And every time he opened his eyes, he repeated the same thing, he's coming back. Not for me, for her. Hung swallowed hard. Why? Why Deep? What does he want with her? But James didn't answer. Instead, he whispered something else. Almost inaudible. He recognized her, from the old photo. Hung froze, his pulse stuttered. What photo? James swallowed, grimacing as pain shot through him. The one she threw in the fire. He has the same one. Hung sank back, breath punched out of him. There was only one photograph Deep had ever burned, the one she had sworn never to let see light again. A house on fire behind her. A little girl. A man's shadow at the edge of the frame. A past she claimed she didn't remember. A past Hung now realized was remembering her. Outside, the bamboo grove rustled, not with wind, but with movement. Dawn growled again, low and guttural. Hung jolted upright. Someone who knew where Deep lived now. Someone had come back. Someone who had followed James's blood trail even after James escaped. Hung moved to the window, lifted the curtain only a fraction. The moon revealed nothing except the faint outline of a figure lingering near the grove. Watching, silent, still, James strained to lift his head. He followed me, all the way? He won't stop. Hung's breath tightened. Why didn't you tell me earlier? Why did you go alone? James coughed, because he said he didn't want trouble with you. Wincing, he only wanted to find her. A chill spread through the room. Hung closed his eyes for a moment, steadying himself. Because he understood what this meant. Deep's past hadn't simply knocked on their door. And now it demanded something, someone, back. It had kicked it open. We need to warn her, Hung muttered, pacing again. We need to get her out, tonight. James grabbed his wrist, surprisingly strong. Not until she knows the truth. Hung shook his head. She won't leave. No, this isn't about truth. It's about survival. But even as he said it, he knew Deep, not from danger. She wouldn't run, not from a man from her past. Not from the mystery she had spent years trying to bury. In the doorway, Don barked, once, sharp, urgent. Hung and James both looked up in the same instant. The figure in the bamboo grove had stepped closer. Not threatening, not fast, just deliberate, as if reminding them, I know you're awake. I am not leaving. I know she's inside. James forced himself up on one elbow, breathing hard. He said he'd come for her tomorrow morning if not tonight. Hung's voice dropped to a whisper. What does he want? James exhaled, eyes clouding. He said he's looking for the girl, the one from the photo. He said she owes him something, something he waited years to take back. Hung felt something cold squeeze his spine, because suddenly, painfully, everything made sense. Not the stalking, not the injury, not the waiting in the forest, but the eyes James had described, the way the man looked when he said Deep's name. It wasn't revenge. It wasn't anger, a claim. It was possession. Hung turned to James sharply. He said her full name? James nodded slowly, to Deep Lan. Hung stumbled back. No one, absolutely no one, knew her full name. Not the neighbors, not the villagers, not even the police in the nearby town. Only 2 people ever knew it, Hung. And the man she feared most. The man she once called, Chu. Hung pressed a trembling hand to his forehead. So it is him. James's expression tightened. She told you about him? Hung nodded once, barely. Only enough for me to know he's dangerous. James managed a bitter smile. Dangerous is an understatement. Hung didn't need to ask for details. The tension in James's face told him everything. This wasn't a man who merely threatened. This was a man who followed through. Hung exhaled shakily, then grabbed his jacket. Where are you going? James whispered. To get her before he does. Don barked again, louder, fiercer. The figure outside shifted. Hung felt the air tighten. Stay here, he told James. Lock the door. Don't open it even if he calls your name. James grabbed Hung's sleeve again, urgent. Be careful, he said. Desperate. He's not just anyone. He's been waiting for this moment for years. Hung nodded. But as he stepped outside into the cold night, into the long corridor of shadows cast by the moon, he realized something far more frightening. He wasn't the hunter tonight, he was already being hunted. The night air met Hung with a slap of cold the moment he stepped off the porch. It was the kind of cold that collected in the bones long before it reached the skin. A cold that carried meaning, warning, something ancient in its stillness. Behind him, the wooden door thudded shut as James locked it from the inside. Ahead of him, the bamboo grove breathed like a living thing. Don bounded forward first, hackles up. Tail low, body stiffened in a posture Hong had only seen once before, when Diep had been threatened last year. He was ready. The dog wasn't afraid. Hong followed slowly, forcing his footsteps to stay soft, silent, deliberate. Each bamboo stalk creaked with the faintest pressure, bending and straightening as if someone slipped between them only moments earlier. The moonlight played strange tricks, turning the grove into a corridor of shadows. He scanned the darkness. "Where are you?" Hung whispered under his breath. A breaking twig answered him, crisp, sharp, intentional. Someone wanted him to know they were there. "Don't," a voice murmured behind him. Hong took another step. Hong spun around so fast he nearly slipped. The voice hadn't come from the grove, it had come from the trees behind the house, the opposite direction entirely. Don whirled too, barking violently. Hong's breath caught. A figure stood between the mango trees. So still the shadows seemed stitched to him, not old, not short, not tall, not young. A man who blended into the dark like water into wet soil, but his eyes. Even from 10 meters away, Hong could see them. And familiar in a way that made Hong's stomach drop. Too calm, cold, sharp. "You're looking the wrong way," the man said. "Who are you?" The man didn't move. Hong's jaw tightened. "If you're going to defend her, at least keep your eyes where the danger really stands." The insinuation crawled up Hong's spine. "Where's Diep?" the man asked. Hong swallowed. "Why do you want her?" The man tucked his hands into his jacket pockets, casual. Almost bored, but Hong knew enough about dangerous men to recognize the posture. He was hiding something. Something he wasn't afraid to use. Something sharp. "When I call her," the man said softly. "She will come." Hung felt the first real tremor of panic punch his ribs. "How do you know her?" he asked. The man tilted his head, amused. "You're asking the wrong question." Hung stared. "You should be asking," the man continued. "What she remembers." Hung's pulse spiked. "What does that mean?" The man stepped forward once. And yet it felt like he moved a kilometer closer. "Just one step. I'm not here to hurt her," he said. "Not tonight." Hung exhaled shakily. "But soon," the man added. "I will take back what is mine." Don lunged, barking so viciously the air vibrated. Hung grabbed his collar before he could leap. But the man didn't flinch, didn't even blink, didn't step back. A monster would have shown more humanity. Hung forced his voice to steady. What do you want from her? The man smiled, a tiny curl of the lip. I've waited years. A smile without warmth. Don't spoil this for me. Hung felt the blood drain from his face. The man took another step forward, and then, something changed in his eyes. He looked up, toward the house. Not at Don, not at Hung, at James. At the window, the man's smile deepened, slow and deliberate. I see you finally told him. Hung didn't breathe. I knew you would, the man continued. You always talk too much when you're scared. Hung froze. The man wasn't talking to him. He was talking to James, watching from the window. The man raised one finger to his lips. A memory, a warning, a gesture. Hung didn't know what it meant. But James would. Then, as quietly as he had appeared, the man stepped backward into the grove, one soft step at a time, disappearing between the bamboo stalks like a ghost slipping beneath a river's surface. Don barked violently, straining against Hung's grip. Hung whispered, "No, boy, let him go." But even he didn't believe the words. Inside the house, the air felt impossibly tight. James's breath came faster, shorter, harsher. He saw everything from the window, saw the man. Saw the look, saw the gesture. He wasn't hallucinating, he wasn't imagining pieces of a nightmare. The past he thought he could outrun had finally followed him home, when Hung burst back inside, slamming the door behind him. James didn't need to ask. He found you, James said. Hung nodded. What did he say? James asked, voice barely above a whisper. Hung hesitated, the first sign of fear James had ever seen in him. He said, "He's coming for her." Soon. James closed his eyes, jaw tightening. "He's not after Deep," James murmured. "He's after the girl she used to be." Hung sat heavily on the edge of the cot. Then tell me everything. No more pauses, no more pieces. James opened his eyes slowly. He said you told him, Hung added. James shook his head, pain firing up his shoulder. I never told him anything. But he knew you would talk, Hung said. He said you talk too much when you're scared. James's breathing hitched. Hung leaned in. James? Who is he? What is he to her? James swallowed. He's not someone from her adulthood. Throat painfully tight. He's someone from her childhood. Hung's blood ran cold. The fire? James nodded. The little girl, James whispered. In the photo, standing in front of the burning house. Hung waited. The man in the background? James said. The shadow she never identified? Hung's heart hammered. That's him, James said. Hung leaned back as if struck. But why now? Hung asked. Why reappear after all these years? James looked at the locked door. He said he's taking back what's his. Hung's mind spun. What does that mean? What did she owe him? James exhaled shakily. I don't know, but I know he believes the past wasn't an accident. Hung stared. The fire? James nodded slowly. He thinks someone set it. On purpose, and he thinks she knows who did it. Hung felt a chill that didn't belong to the room. She doesn't remember, Hung insisted. That's the problem, James said. He needs her to. Hung looked toward the window. If he comes back, when he comes back, James corrected. Hung swallowed. We need to warn her before he gets to her first. James thought for a moment. No, he said. We need to make her remember before he forces her to. Hung stiffened. That will break her. James looked away, pain flashing through him, emotional, not physical. It's better than losing her. Silence, only the sound of Don's pacing outside the door. Restless, protective, sensing something neither man could see. What will he do? Hung asked. Anything, he said. James didn't hesitate. He'll do anything to unlock the past. Hung's hands curled into fists. And if he finds her alone, he won't stop at talking, James finished. Where are you going? James asked. Hung rose abruptly. To bring her home, Hung said. James shook his head. If he's watching the grove, you won't make it far. Hung exhaled through his teeth. Then what do we do? James looked at the door again. At the shadows under it, we stay awake, he said. We wait. For what? Hung asked. James swallowed hard, eyes darkening. For him to come back. Hung's jaw clenched. He said not tonight. He lies, James whispered. He always lies. Hung paced again, the tension building. What does he want from her? He asked one more time. A name, he said. James finally answered. A name, James repeated, voice low. Hung froze. One name she forgot. One name she buried. One name he's willing to burn the whole forest to hear again. Hung whispered, Dear God? Then, what name? James stared at the window. At the bamboo shifting unnaturally in the windless night, and with a voice that trembled. For the first time since Hung had known him, he whispered, his. A silence deeper than fear fell over the room. Neither man spoke. Neither man moved. Because both now understood. The danger outside wasn't hunting deep, it was waiting for her to remember. The past wasn't coming back, the past had never left, and tonight, its shadow stood in the bamboo grove, whispering a name only she could unlock.